cause I'm on one.
You know, we have ones that's Ras Tafari, live in the city, Kingston City, Manhattan, like you know, we live amongst our universal brothers and sisters, and Rastafari is for each and every one. So it's not a...
Swinging for the fences for the home run.
Habesha, Megusana, guess the Ethiopia. Habesha, Mr. Maya, the Farambasa. Habesha.
Even further beyond into the universe, but I've got to make it to first.
Urgent message from the 12 seers of Mount Zion. They said the black nation will be blessed by God in these days. Circle the mountain and go home. Shabbat, Mount Zion calling me.
Its funded status rising nearly 6 percentage points in 2018. The plan's funding ratio ranked 93rd out of the 100 largest U.S. corporate pension plans, according to P&I's analysis of 10K filings. Spokeswoman for GE said in an email that these actions are the logical continuation of steps taken in 2011 and 2012 when the company closed the DB plan to new hires and began providing a DC-only retirement plan. With $26.7 billion in DC assets as of September 30th, 2018, GE's 401k plan is the 10th largest U.S. corporate DC plan according to P&I data. GE contributed $430 million to its 401k plan in 2018, per its latest 10K. GE will contribute 3% of employees' salaries to a 401k plan and also provide a 50% matching contribution for up to 8% of employee contributions. Employees will also receive a 2% pay increase for the next 2 years to help with the transition. Kevin Cox, GE's Chief Human Resources Officer, said in a news release announcing the actions, "Returning GE to a position of strength has required us to make several difficult decisions, and today's decision to freeze the pension is no exception. We carefully weighed market trends and our strategic priority to improve our financial position with the impact to our employees. We are committed to helping our employees through this transition." GE declined requests for an interview. Analysts and industry experts agreed that it's the right thing for GE to be doing from a balance sheet perspective. "I'm amazed it's taken so long," said Brian K. Langenberg, principal and founder of analyst firm Langenberg and Company, LLC, Chicago. "Your stock is in the single digits. You were once one of the biggest players in the industry. What part of this is confusing?" quote unquote. GE is under some distress, which means they have to sell assets, he said. "If you can find a way to reduce your liability by several $billion, you do it," Mr. Langenberg said. "The move away from defined benefit toward defined contribution has been a 20-something year trend." Carol Levinson, director of research at Gimme Credit LLC, a New York-based corporate bond research firm, said in an email, "I'm glad GE is taking action to bolster its balance sheet and reduce its fixed obligations, but we don't really know the full financial implications yet, do we? Now it has to come up with an ongoing cash outlay today to make and match the 401k contributions instead of paying out pension benefits over time in the future, theoretically funded from plan assets. We view these actions as another incremental positive step in GE's path toward deleveraging its balance sheet, while also shrinking and de-risking its pension obligations," wrote Deanne M. Dre, a managing director and senior analyst at RBC Capital Markets LLC, Toronto, in a note to investors. These moves are also constant with a growing trend of corporations moving away from traditional DB plans to DC plans. Firms such as Caterpillar Inc., International Business Machines Inc., Lockheed Martin Corp., and Boeing Co. have all frozen their pension plans in the last decade or so. And we spoke about Boeing extensively throughout the year. So hopefully ones have been able to keep up with that. But continuing on here in the reading of this article, Dave Suchlin, managing director at Willis Towers Watson PLC, Philadelphia, also said that what GE has done and how it's doing has been a consistent trend over the last 20 years. Citing a study from Willis Towers Watson, Mr. Suchlin noted that in 1998, 59% of Fortune 500 companies offered a DB plan to new hires. In 2017, only 16% of those same employers provided one. With DC, there's lower risk on the balance sheet. Over time, Mr. Suchlin said. He added that GE's path in moving to frozen plan from a closed one is similar to one many other organizations took. An organization like GE will cause other companies that still have a DB plan to think about their DB plan and look at them again, Mr. Suchlin said. The trend toward DC to reduce liabilities isn't just occurring in the U.S. The same sort of thing is happening in North America, is happening in the UK, said Chris DeMarco, managing director of UK Pension Risk Transfer at Legal & General Group plc in London. Certainly the fact that folks are living longer means that the cost of paying people a pension until the day they die has increased dramatically. He also noted that falling interest rates have squeezed plan sponsors by increasing the cost of future pension obligations and diminishing returns on investments, which makes it more difficult to meet those obligations. What GE has done is dramatic because of the sheer size of the liabilities they have, but it's consistent with what corporations have been doing in the US and UK, Mr. DeMarco added. As for why it took so long, Ms. Levinson said she supposed it was because it was always a part of the corporate culture to take care of its employees forever, and thus a big cultural shift to change that implied promise to existing long-time employees. It's different when you hire people who know they won't get a pension. I was wondering why it didn't just terminate the plan and purchase annuities, as others have done, Ms. Levinson added. In his note to investors, RBC's Mr. Dre said he believes these pension actions should have been orchestrated much sooner and arguably by the previous CEOs. Despite this, Mr. Dre wrote that he thinks this initiative led by CEO Larry Culp and Mr. Cox had been sequenced according to the list of actions that the company had needed to methodically prioritize to meet its 2020 leverage target. GE also needed to secure funding from its portfolio sales so that it could redeploy the proceeds on these debt and pension reduction actions. And so that concludes, the reading here for the layoffs that are happening or have happened at General Electric, one of the biggest Fortune 500 companies, as you heard here from the report. But this has been going on a lot, and we should have been covering this a lot more often than not. But I'm sure that ones have been seeing and feeling the effects, especially if they are in and around the United States at this moment. And even so, it's growing so much now to the point that all of these financial and economic shifts and a lot of the mistakes and the things that were done in the past are now coming, full circle, in today's time here in 2019. But, even so, we spoke about this with Deutsche Bank, and even so, we have another report here on HSBC, which is a large corporation, banking institution, internationally recognized and also utilized by many ones out here in the world, that has come up in these reports as well. So, again, adequate planning, a lot